I pulled off a publicity stunt and I basically claimed I was signed to Eminem and 50 Cent's record label. The Sun newspaper picked it up. Like, it went bonkers. Whoa, might hold a welcome surprise. I said, if you're feeling haunted, take this as a warning. Tonight could be...
Grant is an award-winning experiential creative director who over the past 15 plus years has become famous for the ideation and delivery of powerful brand experiences, events, and immersive art for iconic brands, including Johnnie Walker, Ford, HP, Ralph Lauren, Tudor, just to name a few.
Meeting people will change your life. A lot of people say no, because they're scared of what's on the other side of that yes. If it's a question, treat it as a lifeline and greet that lifeline with a yes and see what happens. I'm hell-bent on, like, you know, kind of really propelling people to grow down, to reconnect with their inner child. What am I going to do tomorrow that I've never done before? You do have to be used to being uncomfortable if you want the glory. Then end up going and presenting at Oxford University. I'm on stage. I've got bloody knees. I've got a bike outside with, like, all scratched down the side with, like, the wing mirror hanging off. Then we had a brief come in. It was for Deezer. And I'm like, what if we put a band inside? The first thing you want to come out of everyone's mouth when they see your work. Wow. And if you get a wow, your job's done.
Grant, thanks so much for joining me.
Thank you for having me.
Okay, awesome. So first of all, you're a man of many, many talents. You won a cage fight. You even played in The Crown.
Sure.
We were just speaking about you, like, starting the wedding ceremony for your friends. Tell me about that. Like, how did you get to a place to do so many things?
I think you've got to put yourself into a world where you have lots of opportunities and possibilities, you know, that are presented to you, right? So I think for me as a kid, and I think we're all like this as children, we're always looking for the next adventure. We don't know what that's going to be, but we know that something exciting is around the corner. And I think for me, that's how I live my adult life as well. It's like, what am I going to do tomorrow that I've never done before, right? What's the next big chapter? What's the next big thing that I can do in my life that I will one day look back on and say, I'm really proud of that moment?
Makes sense. And that's actually hard because it puts you out of your comfort zone many times, obviously. Sure. And like so many people like avoid getting out of their comfort zone. So how do you, like, are you conscious about, hey, like, I'm just going to do this thing. It's like a bit stressful, but I'll just go for it.
I think that's the best approach. Again, like kids do that, right? It's like you learning as a kid through trial and error. You know, you fail all the time. And normally your parents don't say, oh, you failed. When you're young, it's only that happens when you're, say, in your teens. It's like, oh, you failed your maths exam. And it's like, that's bad. And everyone's like, oh, you're a failure. And it's like, oh my God. But when you're a kid, you know, failure is a natural part of you learning and progressing and becoming a more well-rounded individual. And I really like to try and take, you know, the principles of that and apply them to my adult life as well. So I fail all the time. I always fail. Of course, you're not going to see the failures, even though I came up with the Naked Entrepreneurs when I had a business, like, you know, was it 7-8 years ago? Because I wanted to give people a sense of what happens behind closed doors. We always show everybody what the good stuff looks like. But it's like, you know, Stephen Bartlett's like, you know, he's announcing that he's done so well recently on, you know, I think he's like #1 podcast on Spotify or whatever it might be. Like, he's doing tremendous things, right? Incredible. And it's like, it all started in my bedroom when I had a mic and I put a sock over the top of it. You know, I'm like, what is that? Like, first episode? Like, what does it sound like? Who did you interview? Like, I want to listen to that because that's so important. It's so important to show people what the path of reality has looked like to you, because that's what we can relate to. We can't relate to, like, people with millions and millions of pounds who are already at the top, sat on their throne, right? Looking down and telling everybody how to get there, but they're not quite going into the nitty gritty of how they actually got there and what did their failures look like. Like, give me a whole book of all of the failures that you had to go through in order to get to where you are. That for me is really important.
That's an amazing take. And I think like for super successful people, like if they open the doors and show us their past and show us their beginning and like their journey and like the hardship that they went through to become who they are, then that, I think, as you said, inspires, motivates more people and say, look, this guy made it. started from nothing, started from like a sock on his mic, and then still got it. So I would love to hear about your early life. You told me you grew up at the north in a very small village. Talk to us about that early stage.
Okay, I mean, early stage, like I was a lost kid. I was a happy kid, but I was obviously, I suppose, any kid is trying to figure out their path. And I think I was not very academic, but incredibly creative. But creative wasn't really celebrated a great deal. My granddad used to paint a lot, play the trumpet, play piano. You know, I was kind of from the boy band era, right? So I'd be like watching Backstreet Boys and I'm like, maybe I can sing, maybe I can write music. So I wrote my first song when I was like 10 years old with a friend called Heaven. And I won't be doing a rendition, but like, you know, it was like anything creative, I threw myself at it. That was me as a child. But I was also incredibly nervous, not massively articulate, always kind of stumbling over my words. I was very much wanting to excel. I did excel at football when I was like 10 and 11 years old, but my dad put me through my paces in terms of discipline. I was training every day. I saw the value in really committing to something, and then the results paid off. And then my dad got me into karate when I was like 11 years old. And I walked into the dojo crying my eyes out. I was like, I don't want to do this. He's like, you want to be like Bruce Lee one day, Jean-Claude Van Damme? I'm like, yeah. He's like, you need to start doing this then. Because a lot of people live in their mind. They live in the dream. But it's very daunting when it comes to the pragmatic approach to realizing what that dream looks like one day. Like, what are the necessary steps you need to take to get to, you know, be one of your idols one day, right? So that was a really interesting lesson for me, is that you do have to be used to being uncomfortable if you want the glory. So my dad threw me in that dojo and I never looked back. I started, you know, teaching that class. 5 years later, I got my black belt in karate. I got my second dan black belt when I was 18. You know, like I was doing a lot of kumite, a lot of like competition fighting as well when I was very young, and winning a lot. So I've always been kind of really like exploring the multiple facets of who I am. Like, we're trying to work ourselves out. We don't know what we're good at until we try something. So you have to try everything in order to really understand what it is that you're great at. Maybe you think you've found your calling, but you haven't tried enough things. Maybe if you're a professor, you're like, this is my calling, but you haven't tried maybe painting an acrylic, you know, kind of composition. And if you did try that, maybe you would excel at that as well. So I think it's really important in life to try as many things as possible. And as a young boy, I did that. But I was also like, you know, came from the north. There was barely anything around. It was a very modest kind of upbringing in terms of like, I was on my BMX and I was climbing trees and playing football. And it was amazing because, you know, you don't know what you don't know, right? So I didn't know about like big city life and all of that. Like, it was a very kind of beautiful, innocent upbringing. When I got to London, it was like, whoa. And I won a modeling competition when I was 18. And I ended up, it's not my CV, but I ended up being the face of Scunthorpe, 1998. And I mean, the competition wasn't particularly, because a lot of my friends were like, we should have entered. Anybody could have entered and won. Like, did you see the level of competition you had? But you know, I did win and I took advantage of that. I got signed to a Sheffield model agency, but they also sent me to a Vidal Sassoon, like, kind of photo shoot in London. It was the first time I went to London at the age of 18. And it like blew my mind because there was nothing quite like it. You know, in Scunthorpe, you generally needed to dress in a certain way, right? Like if you went to a nightclub dressed in a certain way, like sometimes you were asking for trouble.
Wow.
Like people you'd be like, what, who gives you the right to wear that? Like, you know, so you'd end up in really kind of, you know, difficult situations. Whereas in London, the level of, you know, individuality was embraced. And I loved that, right? It was a complete level of expressive freedom. And I really enjoyed just kind of getting to see what this beautiful city had. And I was like, this is where I need to be. So I ended up going to university because I didn't know what else to do. Coventry University, which was like a big version of Scunthorpe. So again, it's It's a very similar kind of life to what I was used to. And after university, I studied graphic design and communication, didn't particularly take it seriously, met lots of really amazing people whilst I was there. I think the social aspects and benefits of university is amazing, but educationally, like I just wasn't ready. My mind was so like ready for every type of adventure you could possibly imagine. I wasn't really bothered about, kind of, I wanted to do the bare minimum to scrape through uni.
Makes sense.
And so I ended up kind of leaving university, and I said to my mum and dad, I was like, I don't want to do graphic design. I'm going to go and sing in a band. And they're like, yeah, but you don't know. I mean, you've got a good voice, Grant, but like you haven't even performed in front of anyone. I was like, I've done karaoke in a pub in Scunthorpe. Like, what more do you want? I'm like, the crowds are tough. And they're like, okay, all right, no problem. What are you going to do? I'm like, well, I'm going to go and stay at my auntie and uncle's place for 3 weeks because they said I could. And then I'm going to figure out a way of making it happen in London. And that's exactly what I did. So I moved to Brighton. I slept in on the floor, basically, like in my cousin's room, in a sleeping bag. My uncle, he probably won't want me to say this either, but never fixed the damn window. So there was just this cold air coming through all the time. It was like March, April time. So I was just shivering. Like I remember those days, they were tough. Like they didn't like to spend much money on central heating. So showers in the morning were freezing. They were cold, and it was dribbly as well. Like it wasn't a power shower.
Yeah.
So it was just like you got this cold
Slowly
water.
getting
It's
all
just it was awful. It was awful. I just thought, what am I doing? This is just I hate this. But then I'm like, well, do you want to go back to Scunthorpe and figure out, where to take your career? Because that's also not going to be great, and it's going to be more uncomfortable than anything you go through right now, because I don't want to ever look back in years to come and regret not trying something or giving it my best. I'd rather go all out and fail and go, right, okay, at least I tried.
And this is where the discipline thing.
This is where the discipline came in for sure.
From Dad.
100%. And so every day I went in, I started I joined this marketing agency, but I was one of the guys on the street, Oxford Street, kind of going up to people and, giving them leaflets or, kind of trying to sign them up to like this beauty day out where for one day only it was £50, normally £250, but to you £50, but it's cash in hand. And so I did that. I met lots of people. I was singing to as many people as possible because obviously that was my ambition going to London. I was like, I'm trying to join a band, so I'm going to sing to everyone that'll listen. And then in the end, I had this woman come to me like after 3 months of couch surfing, because I'd just meet people and they'd let me stay on their couch. And I got super, super low. I just felt so down. And I crouched outside of Topshop at Oxford Street, feeling super sorry for me. And I had this weird kind of like monologue, kind of reaching out to a higher power. I'm not religious. I am spiritual. But I was like, universe, you like, why is it so hard for you just to give me an open door? Like, why can you just not give me what I'm asking for? It's not like I'm asking to win the lottery. I'm willing to put in the hard work. I just want to sing in a band. Why is it so hard, right? So I had this I was kind of angry. I was like almost telling the universe off a little bit, like, kind of like, what's going on?
What will
you created this world that we're part of. Everything that you've created, all of this magic around us, and you can't even give me a band to join. Like, come on. And then this woman turned up out of nowhere. I'm not kidding. At the end of that monologue, and she asked me to stand on my feet, and I was like, sure. And she's like, can I take your picture? I was like, yeah, no problem. She took my picture. She's like, I'm a scout for Premier Model Management, which is Naomi Campbell's agency. She's like, I think you'd be perfect for the men's division. We're just starting it. So she's like, I'm going to go back, and then, would you be available today, like to come down to the agency? I was like, 100%. She calls me like an hour later. We're really interested. Come down, see the team, go down. They sign me up immediately, send me out to castings literally like the day after, give me a portfolio, take a bunch of pictures. I then did like a small editorial for like Vivienne Westwood, and did Wrangler and all of these other kind of really amazing brands, but they weren't big jobs. But 3 days later, after I got signed, I was literally going into a casting, went in the wrong entrance to this building, and this other model got lost as well. And we're like trying to figure out where the hell we're supposed to go. And it ended up being this guy was like a singer with funding who was looking for another dude to form a band with. And then we ended up writing a song together. We went to perform it 3 days later, and he went, I want to do this.
No way.
This is going to work. So then he basically went, come to Italy, because where he was based at the time, we're going to make it happen. And then I just ended up in a band for like 2 years.
There you
LA,
go.
yeah, the
And
whole
then
work.
you asked, like, is this luck or hard work?
It's yeah, and I think it's luck. I guess it's a bit like the harder you work, the luckier you are, right? You'll never get what you want if you just sit at home praying for it. You pray whilst you're in motion, hunting for it. It's kind of the law of attraction, right? It's like, thank you, universe, for this, that, and the other. Get hyped. Get super hyped. Get on a vibration where you're like, I'm a warrior today. I'm going to go out there. I'm going to do great things. And then when you get out there and you're also consciously looking for opportunities, you'll find them.
And so it's up to you to grab them at this point.
100%.
Awesome. So what a crazy journey, early journey. I think going back, actually, I have a couple questions. We were chatting earlier. You said, for someone ambitious, for someone who wants to do like creative stuff, I had to get away from where I grew up.
Yeah.
Is this like, do you think there's something about how like your family brought you up that made you this ambitious and creative? And if yes, like, or like, is it in your DNA? Like, how do you perceive ambition and creativity?
How do I perceive ambition and creativity? I mean, I will say that my granddad was always very entrepreneurial, but my mum and dad aren't. My sister is very clever, and I guess she would have been entrepreneurial maybe if she hadn't have had like, a family and all of that. But I've always been the guy that's gone, I'm going to go and like make things happen. Against all odds as well. Like a lot of my friends and that, they're like, come on. And I'm like, no. So when I ended up kind of, at the end of the band, I pulled off a publicity stunt and I basically claimed I was signed to Eminem and 50 Cent's record label. The Sun newspaper picked it up. I ended up like having over 600,000 people visit my website within a day. I had paparazzi outside my parents' home. Like it went bonkers. So at that point, everyone, all the naysayers, from back at school, my mates and all the rest of it, they're like, what the hell? Like you said you were going to go and sing. And we didn't really think that it was going to work out. I mean, at one point I didn't, right? And arguably it didn't because it was a lie. But nevertheless, everybody was like, oh my God, Grant is all over the press.
Yeah.
But I ended up meeting Eminem's lawyer, and he congratulated me. And then the Mobos were like, we want to sign you on a management deal. And we went to perform in front of 2,000 people at the Hippodrome. Then Concord, the tour management company behind Lamar and Jamelia, who were like the big R&B artists in the UK at the time, were like, we want to represent you, and we want you to tour with Lamar and Jamelia in concert across the summer. But then my singing partner like ended up just not particularly getting on with the management, and then in the end they just went, we can't work with you, and that was it, done. So life is a funny one, right? And you always think you have your own measure of success. I guess because you what did you say, what was I know I've got like off piste here, but like what was the question? It was like, how do you define creativity, and what
I guess I was like, so like obviously coming from that background, right? What contributed in you, like, because I think you were the outlier. I'm not sure if there's anyone else from where you grew up that like had such a like journey or so. There you go. Really. So like, what do you think was different for you? Was it like your grandfather? Was it like, what made you specifically?
I don't know. I think I mean, maybe this is controversial, but I sometimes think like it's innate. It's we are all individuals. I know that we always want to go, yeah, but it was down to the environmental influences, or it's just down to his father being this or his grandma being that, and blah blah blah. Of course you have to have a level of aptitude, that is part of your genetic makeup, I guess, because that gives you your level of ability. Like some people are just naturally artistic, right? You can't learn necessarily creativity. The brains work in certain ways. Like I wasn't naturally good at mathematics. I wasn't naturally good at like, kind of science, but I was very good at problem solving creatively. My imagination has always been like the most effervescent imagination in the room, right? Like my mind has always been one foot in the future. Like I designed all of these Nike shoes and trainers because I was obsessed with them when I was young, and I put like a night bubble that went all the way down round the back of the trainer and at the front as well, and then I reduced the Nike tick to small ticks, and then I had like these things to help you kind of pull the shoes on, these little tags at the back. And so I drafted all of these out, sketched them out, and I sent it to Nike's HQ, thinking that maybe they'll come back to me and be like, oh, we can give you an internship. I was only 14. And they didn't get back to me. We called them up. My mum was like, have you received them? They definitely received them. But the long and short of it is that like 5 years later, all the designs I sent them had all come out. And I'm not saying it was down to me, but it meant that what it proved to me was that my mind is absolutely aligned with where the future is heading. Now, whether I'm the first person to bring it to market or not, I guess doesn't really matter. I mean, it's nice if it does happen, obviously, because you get a level of respect and credibility for that. But I think the most important lesson for me was that my mind is very, very clear in terms of what the future looks like.
Makes sense. And was your first ever job the one that you explained earlier, the modeling kind of like opportunity that you got there? Or did you have like an earlier like teenager job that you think like contributed to shaping you?
I've done every job you could possibly imagine, right? So, my dad would get me to like go into the garden, chop trees down, like trim bushes, creosote the fence, lift stuff. Like I would be doing stuff all the time for pocket money. I didn't get pocket money unless I worked. Exactly. So if I wanted some money or if I wanted some new trainers, my dad would go, oh, we'll get you them, but you're going to earn the money. So that was definitely a good lesson as well. My granddad as well. I called my granddad up. I'm like, look, I need some money. Put me to work. So my granddad used to do gardens, right? Like on my dad's side. So he's like, you can just come and do some gardening with me, and I'll give you like 30% of what I take. So I was like, fantastic. So I definitely started to understand the importance of working hard. Work ethic is incredibly important, right? Like you're not going to get anywhere if you're lazy. So you go above and beyond to basically find what it is that you're capable of doing in life, and also above and beyond to secure your dream and the ambition. And it's always difficult, but like you've just got to fight. It's like getting to the top of a mountain. Like, you think you've got the path laid out, but suddenly a boulder like ends up in your way, and you've got to figure out a way going around that. But you do have a North Star, and that's really important as well.
Do you think young people nowadays think like that?
I think it's difficult. I don't like to kind of, a lot of people, I find we generalize a lot, right? So it's like Gen Zs are this and millennials are this. And of course there are traits that are maybe quite common, but there are definitely like traits in certain Gen Zs that I saw when I was a kid as well. Like, we're born into a world, we're very similar to one another. There is an environmental influence for sure that kind of, I guess, informs how you think about the world that you're in currently, politically or kind of, from a social perspective. But yeah, I think there's lots of opportunities this day and age to be a successful entrepreneur. And even if you're in like, the game of content creation, you still need to put the work in, right? Look at Mr. Beast, like incredible trajectory. In 10 years, his progress has been insane, but he's put the effort in. It's not like he's like pressed a few buttons and he's got like an algorithm to basically do it for him. And of course, a lot of people want to do next to nothing. There's all these guys popping up on your Instagram going, I work 1 minute every week and I earn £10 million a month. And it's like, okay, mate. But for me, it's like, well, no, why do you learn from Mr. Beast? Like, look at his like trajectory. Also, education has never been more accessible. Education wasn't accessible when I was young. we had yellow pages, like we had an encyclopedia that you would have to go through, right? Now, anything you need to know is literally like, one prompt away.
Yep.
That for me is incredible. It's gold. You can learn anything you want to learn, anything.
And if it wasn't hard, there would be like 100 Mr. Beasts
Yeah,
right now. But there are not. There's
No.
one. So yeah, that says a lot about like all the effort he's put in. So okay, let's move on to like obviously you being a creative director for the past like decade plus. How has your early days as creative director, like let's say 10 years ago, changed to your day-to-day currently? I would love to go through like what do you do day-to-day right now as a creative director for all of these?
I mean,
very
I
exciting
have a
projects?
huge team now. So I have
How big
like
is your team?
9 creative directors
Nice.
across a myriad of different like major projects, immersive experiences, festivals, drone shows, all of that, right? So my job is to validate all of that creative output. So that keeps me very busy, but I also have my own projects as well, with my own team on those projects that will ultimately be realized as well as part of the whole roster of work that's coming out of the company. So that definitely keeps me busy. I think, how has it changed? I mean, my role, I started as a creative, right? So I was just going in every day to support the creative director and the senior creative. And so my role really was, because they definitely figured out very early that I was very creative, right? So if there was a brief that came in, we would brainstorm collectively, and more often than not, the ideas that I came up with would then land with the client. So
they would like them, essentially. They would approve them.
Yes, yeah. And look, in my 20s, it's important to note this as well. Yes, I was running around all over the world trying to figure out what it was that I wanted to do. After the band, I ended up working, as a host at a members club, in London. Did that for 4 years. Also worked at the same time in a digital agency in the day. And so Monday to Friday, I had my day job. And then Thursday, Friday, Saturday night, I would be literally working from 10 p.m. till 3 a.m. on the door of this nightclub called the Kingly Club. Okay. But the great thing about that was that I met so many people. And meeting people will change your life. I know that there's a lot of people that will look at, say, the Beckham's kids, and they're like, oh, they've got it made. Anything they want to do. I think, like, I can't remember which Beckham. I think it was the oldest Beckham, but he ended up doing like a whole photo shoot for Burberry, right? And so obviously everyone was like, this is ridiculous. He's only got the gig because of his parents and this, that, and the other. But if you strip that back and you just make it more of an accessible lesson, it's because of the people they know, right? And it just happens to be their mum and dad. But the mum and dad have opened the door for them, right? But that's not to say you can't find people of influence that will open the door for you as well. So that for me was a big lesson as well. In my 20s, I was like, okay, maybe I'm not going to be in a band now. The band broke up. Okay, no problem. But I need to figure out how to navigate life. And I need people around me that will help me do that. So working in hospitality is a great way to do that. But also, like, if you're going to work in hospitality, don't work in like a bar in Scunthorpe or in all of these places that don't have much going on. Go to Mayfair and work in Mayfair. Go and work in Soho. Go and work in Belgravia or Chelsea, because the people you meet are going to be able to change everything for you. And me working in Soho changed my life.
Optimize your environment. It's the same as like, if you're building a tech startup, go take a plane to San Francisco.
Right.
Don't stay in Greece.
Go where the fish are, right?
Yeah.
Is basically what I'm saying.
Be around the inspiring people in your space.
Exactly. And that was my thing, is that if I was super creative, Soho was super creative, go and work in hospitality in Soho. So that's what I did. And I met all of these. Kevin Spacey used to come down all the time, like Tom Hanks. There was like, kind of all manner of different famous people used to come to the club on a regular basis. And
would you go up to them? Like, would you actually be like...
Well, they couldn't get in unless they came through me. So I could play a game on the door a little bit and be like, I'm not sure I should let you in tonight. Or are you a member? Why? But I'm like, you got to take that cap off, Kevin. This was before everything went a bit haywire for him. But like, The thing is, I was the first point of contact for anyone coming to that club.
Yeah.
That was amazing because I got to meet all of the people that went in. I had full autonomy on how I managed those conversations and those interactions. And, I had a lot of people that didn't like me as well, right? Because I would turn them away, or, there was still a level of discipline that I had to uphold on the door in terms of who I would let in and who I wouldn't let in. So for me, it was a really interesting chapter. But that's when I ended up like getting to say 30 years old and not really knowing what I wanted to do. Because all these kids now are like, not kids, but these guys in their 20s who are like, they're like, oh, I don't know what I want to do. I'm screwed. I'm 23 years old. Like, I thought I was too old when I was 21 to join a boy band, because all of the kind of like castings were for 16 to 17-year-olds. If you're 21, you're an old man within the singing industry, right? Like, and I was just like, oh my God, I've missed the boat. Now what am I going to do? I'm 21. I'm actually an adult now. Oh my God, I've got no level of prospects. My grades at school were terrible. Like, what am I going to do? And for me, when you get older, you realize when you look back that actually your 20s are there for you to experiment and experiment as much as you possibly can. And then when you get to your 30s, and some people could disagree with this, but like this was my personal journey. And I was folding shirts in the basement of Ben Sherman, and at 30 years old, surrounded by 18, 19, 20-year-olds. And they're like, oh man, we're like, well, what are you doing? Like, you really messed up in life. And I'm like, I know, I don't know what's going on. But I was selling like, really lovely suits, arguably lovely, to all of the, different people that would come in from Carnaby Street. And there was also lots of really interesting creative people that would walk in there as well.
Yeah.
And then down with dead time, I would literally write short stories. Right, that's how I kept my mind fueled.
Active.
And I had an artist come in, and he's like, "Oh, what are you doing?" And I'm like, "Oh, I'm just writing a few short stories." He was like, "Oh, I want to find a short story to illustrate." He said, "I've been looking for many, many years, but I just can't find the right story." And I was like, "Okay, well, I'll send one of these over and see what you think." And he loved them, so
Wow.
he ended up like illustrating 3 of them. And then one of those stories as well won the Yahoo Short Story Competition, which is like an international competition, like back in 2020. So it's like, it's really interesting. I think being a creative, you have to be prolific.
That's crazy. Was that your in the like creative space?
So my into the creative space, it wasn't. I've got a lot of stories, so this is why it takes probably a lot longer than it should to tell you what they are. But I got to the point where I met this creative director. That I can tell you a story because it's really interesting.
Yeah.
So the whole darkest hour comes just before dawn.
Yeah.
Right? Like that's very applicable to the life that I've lived so far. And I got super, super down. I had no money. I was at Ben Sherman. Felt old. Felt like I missed my opportunity to shine. And I was like, I think I'm kind of done. Like I'm 30 years old. Like, I tried the band thing. It kind of worked, but it didn't work. I was just like, why is this so hard? Like, life was tough, and a lot of people go through that.
Mm-hmm.
But I got to that stage where I was crying, I think, like, somebody like, don't cry, you're a man. And it's like, well, no, I'm super emotional. That's who I am. I cried at like so many films. And I'm like there kind of crying on my bed. My wife, she wasn't my wife at the time. She's like my girlfriend at the time. She walks in. She's like, don't worry. It'll be fine. You'll figure it out. You always figure it out. Right. And I was like, I don't know if I will now. I don't know if I can. And she's like, it's okay. Something will happen like it did when you were trying to be a singer.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, all right, okay. I was like, I just don't want to talk anymore, but thank you anyway. And then literally, like, as soon as we finished that conversation, he left the room, and then my phone bleeped, and it was a text message. And I was like, read it, and it was the guy who I'd just done the whole Master of Ceremonies for. So he was a good friend, and he was living in LA, and he came over to England, didn't tell me. And he was passing through, and he was like, Grant, I'm in town. Do you want to meet up? I'd love to see you. And I'm like, oh man, I'm like, I'm broke, I'm this and that, I feel down. I don't want him to see me feeling like this, right? And then I say to my girlfriend at the time, I'm like, Justin's just called me, like text me, and I don't really want to go out. She's like, go out. She's like, just go out.
Just do it. Pick
Just
yourself up.
do it and figure it out. So I went out, we met. He could see there was something wrong with him. He paid for dinner. He was there. Like, it's important to find these people in your life that literally are your friends, even when you're at your lowest, right? That's when you know that they're friends. And after our dinner, I get another text randomly from another guy who's like, I'm launching the W Hotel tonight, Grant. Are you in town? Please swing by. I'm like, can I bring a +1? He's like, yes. So I'm like, yes, okay, I'll come. So I'm saying yes, right? Yes, yes, yes. That's also an important thing here as well. Then I go to the W Hotel. We go to the bar. 2 women are like next to us as well. We start a conversation with them. We have a little chat. It's fun. It's, kind of jovial, and a little giggle. And then we don't think anything of it. We take a few drinks and then we leave. We end up dancing even though I wasn't feeling like it. And then like an hour in, I'm like, I'm going to leave. I couldn't get my head into a good place. But I was happy that I come out to see my friend. But I was like, I just need to leave. And then my friend's like, he had 2 girls that he was dancing with. So he was very happy. So I was just like, all right, I'll see you soon. As I left, I get in the lift. The doors are closing. And the 2 girls I met at the bar were like, hold the doors. And I'm like, oh, okay, hold the door. They get in. They're like, oh, so where are you going for a smoke? I was like, no, I'm going to go home. They're like, going home? It's like 1 a.m. I'm like, yeah, it's just like it's open until 3 a.m. They're like, why don't you hang out with us? I'm like, I can, but I said, I don't smoke. They're like, doesn't matter, just hang out with us. I said, all right, I'll hang out with you. And one of those women is basically the reason for me having the career I've had for the last 15 years.
Wow.
Yeah.
And you discovered because you said, yes, I'll hang out for a smoke.
Yes, 3 yeses. Yes, yes, yes.
Yes, 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 while you weren't actually up for it.
Yeah, yeah. So it's like, I want something. The universe goes, here you go. But then a lot of people say no because they're scared of what's on the other side of that yes. If they say yes, like, oh, what does that mean? So it's like it's so important when you're struggling and you're really low and there is, I don't know, a lifeline. Even if you think it's not a lifeline, if it's a question, treat it as a lifeline and greet that lifeline with a yes and see what happens. I've had that so many times in my life.
Amazing. Just like bear the uncomfort, just go for it.
Yeah. And then I ended up working 6 days a week because I was 5 days in Ben Sherman. And then the day there, I swapped out a day. So I was literally working on Saturday as well. I did that for like, I think about a year. But they started, this company was like, gave me 1 day, then 2, then 3. Then I started landing like, ideas with briefs that would come in from clients who were like, we love these ideas. So they saw the value in my ability to create.
That's awesome. Talk to me about the creative process. So the brief comes in, right? They send you the brief. They're like, Grant, get some ideas. What do you do?
So one thing is really important, and this is something that I was always very kind of plugged into, which is always stay abreast of the cool stuff that's happening in your industry. Because number 1, you don't want to repeat what's been done. Number 2, there might be an amazing thing that's happened that you can evolve. Number 3, you might find 2 things that would be amazing if you combined them. And so it's a palette of inspiration. This is why Pinterest is so great. So, and I didn't have Pinterest at the very beginning of my career, but I would go onto like Google Images and I'd type in immersive art installations, right? Like I'd go to events, I'd figure out what was out there in terms of technology that I could use, in terms of off the shelf, kind of hardware that I could use. So there was like a glass box, right, that was normally used to have a car inside it, like a Mercedes or whatever it might be, and they would drive that around. It was like a transparent trailer, if you will, on the back of a truck, but it allowed companies to advertise whilst it was in motion, right, and see the car as it was navigating the streets. So someone said to me, look at this, it's called the Clear Idea. And I'm like, okay, that's cool. And this is just an example of like, how I worked when I was younger and even now. And I was like, okay, that's cool. So in my head, I'm like, that's interesting. Then we had a brief come in. It was for Deezer. So online music subscription service, they wanted to create an experiential awareness campaign for Deezer in the UK. So I came up with all of these ideas, and then I was like, I remember that transparent trailer. And I'm like, what if we put a band inside, then have this whole like silent concert experience where everyone's there watching this band perform inside this glass box. You can only hear it if you have these headphones on. But it means if you go into like high footfall locations, everyone that walks past will see this gig happening, but with no sound. So if you want to hear it, you subscribe to Deezer, which is free anyway, and it unlocks the missing link.
Crazy.
So we called it the Deezer bandwagon, and we were touring these bands around Manchester, Liverpool, Glasgow, up and down the country, and crescendoed in London with Little Boots, I think was her name. And it was a huge success. And that gives you a little bit of an idea of why it's so important to understand what's available out there. It's a palette of opportunity for us as creatives.
Is this a constant thing for you? Like every day you would spend time to like stay up to date, get inspired, see projects, or do you do it like when the brief comes in?
Both. So if I had any downtime, I would go on to like, I would do my own stuff. And also like, this is colossal, like Dezeen, Design Boom, like certain publications that you should be following to show you the latest and the greatest that is happening in your industry, particularly creative work. And for me, I've always been obsessed with art anyway. So art for me has always been like a driver for me in terms of imbuing it into my creative thinking and my response to the briefs that come in. So looking at the cool art installations by Yayoi Kusama, Leandro Ehrlich, like Thomas Saraceno, like all of these amazing artists that were doing groundbreaking immersive experiences that not many people were talking about back in 2013. Like Newman Art Collective, they were phenomenal. They would create these amazing, very kind of play forward, like mesh worlds that you could climb through. And they were incredible. 5-6 years later, Anya Heimarsh ends up like, doing the Weave project, which was with Newman Art Collective. So I was onto these guys like back in 2011, 12, 13, going, I need a brief that I can then somehow plug these guys into. Exactly. And so I think part of doing what I do is to be inspired by other creatives and other work. It's really important. And I hope that my work also does that for other people as well. And I've seen it being presented, which is really nice, sometimes without them knowing I'm in the room, and they'll present a piece of work that I've done, not knowing that I'm there.
It's interesting because what you say essentially tells me, you're seeing all other work, you're humble, you're finding ways to essentially be inspired versus like someone who would be arrogant has, I think, less opportunities to be inspired
100%
than someone who is like
I have my own
closer to the ground.
Yeah, I agree. I have my own kind of very like esoteric creativity, right? That is very, I've got a dream book that I have. So I wake up in the morning, I have these crazy dreams, and I'll sketch them out. I have a dream diary, so I can go back like years and years, and the crazy stuff that comes out of my head, particularly when I'm dreaming, is bonkers. Like a dream the other day was like I was in a giant kind of like metallic warehouse, and when I held my breath, I could fly. And I would just, every time I would just fly through this incredible warehouse, and then I would just like exhale, and then I would just come back to the ground again, right? There was a dolphin with 4 legs. There was a wet bird spirit that would literally like land in my hand, and a giant bird would then come from behind and then hit me with its wing. Like really weird, bonkers, crazy stuff. But that's the art for me, because it's purest art, right? It's very me, it's very esoteric.
Yeah.
But the other side of it is, if you're a creative director, yes, you're an artist, but you are also working within parameters of a brand. So you need to be able to respond to what it is that the brand's looking to achieve, the KPIs and all of that. But you've also got to figure out how to do it in a really innovative, maybe world's first way, because they're always looking for something that's never been done before.
Yeah.
And that's the other great thing about knowing what's out there, is that how are you going to
You
know
can
if
be
it's a
unique.
world's first? Exactly.
Yeah.
If you don't know what's happening. You're like, this is a world's first. And it's like, no, it's happened already 3 times in the last 4 years. So
Makes sense. So how much time do you spend with your clients, like understanding kind of like how to build something that would be the best fit versus like ideation, coming up with all of that?
it's a bit of both. When I used to work with a focus on Johnnie Walker, so we you know, when I was at Chorus as the creative director there, like I was driving the World Championships for bartenders for 3 years for Diageo. So there's like 10 major Diageo brands involved. They all need immersive experiences. Challenge design was driven by a challenge director, who's a very gifted friend of mine as well. So he had a lot of really amazing creatives on the team, but I was driving the overarching look and feel, and also like the whole adventure that everybody would go on. But you're also working out how all of the brands kind of they need to be complementary to each other, because every brand wants to do better than the other brand. So there's a level of competition. You want to make sure that every brand does something that's as good as each other, like, that is effectively wow. That's why I talk about how to wow on LinkedIn, because that's the first thing you want to come out of everyone's mouth when they see your work. Wow. And if you get a wow, your job's done. And so that for me has always been the ambition. But the way I work with brands is, so for Johnnie Walker, you would go through brand immersion. You would, go to their HQ in Amsterdam, and you'd sit there for 3 days and work through like everything that had happened in the past, in the present, the ambition of the brand. You really live and breathe the brand. You do tastings. You really understand what it is that makes that brand what it's become. Once you understand that, you can start to play with that. And you can start to kind of like, maybe their cultural territory is music, or it might be art. So you lean into the music, or you lean into the art. Like, what are their KPIs? Like, are they looking to bring on 12 million new consumers, in the year? And how are you going to do that? How audacious are they as a brand? Like, I really want to push the boundaries. We did a whole perfume for Johnnie Walker Blue Label. Like it was kind of going, we want to target the Gen Z crowd. And it's like, but no one likes whiskey. And if you talk to a lot of Gen Zs, and even my era, like millennials, it's like, oh, I don't like whiskey. It's like, well, tell me what your experience of whiskey was like. Oh, well, I drank way too much Jack Daniels and Coke when I was 18 years old. Worst experience ever. Haven't touched the stuff since. So to their mind, it's like whiskey is Jack Daniels, and it's associated with a very bad experience. So then they never touch it again. You say, oh, Johnnie Walker, they're just like, oh, it's just another branded whiskey. But it's like, but what about if it has a taste profile that's completely different to any other whiskey you've had? And then suddenly you go into the storytelling of that, right? Like, how do you bring them in? Normally it's experience first. If you say, if I go to you, I'm like, we've got an amazing multi-sensory experience called Depth of Blue. Do you want to join me? It's all about kind of diving under the surface of this multi-sensory world. You're like, wow, that sounds kind of cool. Like, I'm down. I'm not doing anything else on a Wednesday night. Let's go, right? And then you get there and you realize it's by Johnnie Walker Blue Label, right? So the ultimate is at the end of all of this experience that you've had, where you're tapping into the senses. You get to smell a perfume. There's a tactile experience. There's beautiful visuals that take you deeper and deeper and deeper under the surface of the storytelling of Johnnie Walker Blue Label, right? It's like, how do you get a level of excitement, when you're talking about a brand? And you do that through it being experience-led, because that's what everybody wants. We always yearn for experiences. We're creatures of experience, right? Ever since that's our point of being here. Humans are here to experience. That's all we're here to do. That could be love. That could be marriage. It could be divorce. It could be, maybe not divorce, but like, we're here to experience. We're creatures of experience. So being able to curate those experiences as brands is a very powerful move.
So interesting. And then like people are held back by memories of experiences.
Yeah.
Like you mentioned, like, they had this experience at 18 that kind of like holds them back from
Yeah.
trying new experiences.
Yeah.
And so your job is essentially, how do I change the perception,
Exactly.
right, of a memory
Exactly.
for people to almost like prompt them to try new things. That's crazy.
Yeah.
How much, like, okay, so how much goes on behind the scenes? Like you mentioned, you had to figure out why people are not actually open to drinking whiskey, like, or like
Yeah.
why it's not popular. Like, did you actually go and like, or your team interview people to understand the perception, or did you like learn this through research? How do you get to know all of that?
There is a level of data that you can
Okay.
extract.
into.
So you can always dive into the data from somewhere. If there isn't data readily available, then you can obviously do a whole kind of like a sense check in terms of inviting 100 of that kind of target demographic into a space, and then you ask them a series of questions and blah 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 blah. Like, data absolutely informs how you approach a lot of these projects.
Okay.
And it's crucial.
Okay, so nowadays you have big teams, right? How each of them come up with their own ideas, and so you review these ideas, you add your direction as well, and then I guess, like, if that's the case, how do each of them break down their projects to actually deliver them? Are you hands-on at deliveries for each of those art directors that report to you?
I am and I'm not. If I see it not going well, then of course I need to be more hands-on. If I have one-on-ones with them once a week minimum, and if I'm comfortable with what they're doing and I like the direction and I think they're doing a great job, then there's not really more I need to do. Like, they're creative directors, they're all grown-ups and they're all good at what they do. So it's my job just to basically act as that level of support, but also that validator of the creative concepts that come out of the company. So from my perspective, they will go and they will work on whatever that project is through their own processes. And then we will agree milestones in terms of, look, this is going to be the first round of ideas, but they can also reach out to me anytime, right? Even though I've got back-to-back meetings, like, I'll always make time for my creative directors. And if they're like, Grant, I need your help with this, or I need some more ideas, then I will come in and I will provide more ideas as well, right? But my ultimate job is to be the kind of creative guardian of the creative output that comes out of the company.
I see. And then on top of everything, you also created your own studio. You're an entrepreneur.
I did have a studio, Grant Harvey, for a few years, which was fun. But as an entrepreneur, it's obviously very difficult as well. And I also had an electric moped sharing scheme back in 2018, where I met Prince William and all of this jazz, and I kind of positioned myself as, the like a expert in sustainable urban mobility, right? So I would go to City Hall and I present to 100 people and try and get investment and blah blah blah. So I understood what it meant to be an entrepreneur. It was horrible. I really hated it, but I also hated the moped and I hated the industry. So and that's the truth. And it was an opportunity that was brought to me by a good friend of mine who was on Dragon's Den. He's a successful entrepreneur. So I was just like, I want a new challenge. This could be really interesting. And it sounded too good to be true, and it was. But I dived in anyway,
As you do,
and I gave it my best shot. But it was like stuff like, we would go to Oxford to talk to Oxford University about sustainable urban mobility, right? I'm fine talking on stage. In fact, I enjoy it. So we were like, right, let's get 2 of the mopeds, brand new mopeds, in the back of a van. We take it to the outskirts of Oxford. We take them out, and we're going to drive through Oxford to the destination, and then we'll present. Because we were like, Oxford's really pretty, right? And I'm like, yeah. And when we get out on the outskirts and we start driving, we realize that Oxford is not that pretty, like, beyond the very center.
Small, yeah.
Yeah. Everything else beyond Oxford is like Scunthorpe. It looks a bit like Scunthorpe. And then on the way in, I end up hitting a curb and the bike flips. I flip off the bike. The bike then smashes into the wall. Kids are coming out of school. They're all screaming. I literally, my friend turned back and he was like, "What are you doing?" He's like Italian. He's like, "Hey, come on, we're late." And I'm like, "Mate, I was like, the wing mirror's hanging off. I've got a gash in my leg." So then I end up going and presenting at Oxford University. I'm on stage. I've got bloody knees. I've got a bike outside with like all scratched down the side with like the wing mirror hanging off. And everyone's asking me if it's a safe way to get around. I'm like, yeah, really safe. It's just that kind of thing. Crazy.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
The things you've been through. Okay, last theme I want to explore. So, right, AI.
Yes.
AI. So I think you've been one of the early adopters in the space.
Yeah.
I'm based in San Francisco. I work with a lot of creatives, especially in the gaming and VFX space. My company is an intersection of like AI and art as well, and I see a lot of like pushback. So my first question is like, okay, so you're based in London. You're one of the thought leaders in the creative space. What do you see being the sentiment like over the past couple of years with all of that new tech?
It's a very complex gray area, but this is my take. So when it first came out, Midjourney and all of that, I was a bit like, I saw a lot of people using it and it was all very surface level, no substance, also not realistic. And I was just a bit like, it's not possible. It's what's the point in kind of creating these kind of visuals? And I said some of the visuals were quite pretty, but it was just a bit like the wrong people were using it. And that's not right for me to say that, I guess, because it's like there are no wrong people, but like if you're trying to produce something that you want a brand to then buy into to get it made, it was not being articulated in the right way. The most important thing is that you have a sensibility about you that has a pragmatism and experience within this sector to understand how to qualify what you're putting out. So if you have a visual that you create on Midjourney, you've got to qualify that visual in a way that is going to allow people to understand whether it's possible or not to make, right? Because that's kind of like, in my world at least, I'm like, hey, look at this. This is possible. We could do this. Yes, it might cost a couple of £1 million, but it's not pie in the sky. And also, a lot of the people were just kind of throwing in random prompts without any real consideration of what they were trying to get out of it. So for me, I had a whole creative team, right? So like, kind of lots of visual artists and that. Like the way I would work with that team, I would go, right, I've got a cool idea. This is what it looks like. I'd sketch it out. Then they would visualize it in render form, and then we would present it to the client, right? With Midjourney, and as long as you go in again with a North Star, in my mind, I know what I want.
Yeah.
So the thing for me as well is, at first I was like shying away from it. I was like, no, I need to use this because I need to have an opinion. And I can't have an opinion unless I've used it and I understand how I can use it for what I do. And then it got really interesting because I was like, actually, you know what? This is allowing me, with all these crazy ideas that I have, to articulate what they look like using AI. And a lot of people are like, yeah, this is AI. This is not your work. It's like, no, incorrect. I've scribbled it out and it's exactly as I have scribbled. And you have to do a lot of work to get there, like a whole daytime drone show I was talking about, right? And I was like, I knew what I wanted to do. I sent up one of my drones with like toilet paper attached to it, and it was like, oh, that sounds really great. And I'm like, but actually, you know what, it was really interesting. It was a really interesting effect. And you send it up and it's just like the movement in the wind and it was very graceful. It was beautiful. You put that to some music, it was quite stunning. So I was like, what if you did that with 1,000 drones? Right? These are the types of ideas I have, right? But then I'm like, okay, I'm going to do it with 1,000 drones. I have to put that into Photoshop, have to da-da-da. I'm like, why do I do it with AI and see if I can get there? So I started with AI, but then I would put it back into, no, I started at Photoshop and then I did like a rough version of it to prompt into Midjourney to say, this is what I want. It's a daytime drone show, never been done before, with these beautiful red voile tendrils, 50 meters long, right?
Here is the visual.
This is the visual to give you a sense of what it should look like, right? Most people don't go to that level of detail, right? So I started prompting it by kind of working in Photoshop, and then I prompt it, and then it got really close, and then I would take it, put it back into Photoshop, and then I would refine that. Then I would put it back into Midjourney. So you use those two in tandem. It got really interesting. So for me, like, you know, it was just a great tool for me to start going, guys, I have all these ideas. I don't have the resource. I'm not like I don't have millions of pounds with like lots of visual artists to go, guys, I've got great ideas, just go and visualize them, right? Like I don't have that level of opportunity. Whereas with AI, it provides that setup. And it's not getting rid of visual artists, because you still need to take whatever you create with AI and also create something that is actually genuinely, you know, going to be translated into reality. That's when you need visual artists, production designers to really translate that in a way that's going to work in real world terms. So, you know, I produced this whole like version of a Tiffany Island takeover, put that out to LinkedIn, and then it went bonkers. Like 38,000 likes, almost 3 million views. You know,
the cruise ship for Tiffany.
Well, the cruise ship was another one, but I did an island. So I was like, imagine Tiffany literally taking a Maldivian island and taking over it, right? Because you've got the turquoise water with the turquoise. It's a no-brainer. So I was like, what would that look like? So I explored what that would look like, and then it ended up like I had, you know, the editor-in-chief of Rob Report Australia go, like, can we use one of these images for our front cover? I'm like, yeah, no problem. And then he did an 8-page profile piece on me.
Wow.
You know, I was just like, wow. And then I've done 3 front covers using AI for Rob Report since, because like he was like, it's one of the best-selling magazines we've ever put out. And so then it gets really interesting. But it's always about having a North Star. And it's always about you also having a curatorial eye. That's really important. You're the qualifier. It's like doing what I do with my creative directors, right? If they come out with something that just doesn't work, then I'm going to go, no, change this, do that. It's the same with AI. I know what I want, and I'm only going to release that to the public if I'm happy with the results.
So since then, are there any other tools except Midjourney that you have found they complement your creative process?
I'm looking at is it Nano Banana or I'm seeing that now come out, and I just haven't had. I think if I fully get into that as well, I'm
so
not.
Much hype.
I don't. I need to explore. I need to explore, but it's then like, what am I exploring? Like I write music, and I release music, and I sing. I'm on Spotify and iTunes, right? So that's my sideline passion. I've never forgotten about my music. And I think as a creative, you always need to be completely connected to all the different creative facets of your character. Music is one. So I'm like, okay, I can release a song. Do I use Nano Banana, or do I use Sora or some sort of like AI video generator to create a music video?
Yeah.
And so therefore I don't have to like go and, you know, like get a whole camera set up and go to different locations and this, that, and the other. I can just do it all with AI. Have I done it yet? No. Am I tempted? Yeah, I'm tempted. Because the other thing as well is that we can all go, oh, we don't agree with it. This is terrible. Oh, what's the world coming to? But whether we like it or not, it's happening. So you either get at the table and you have an opinion, or you get rolled over. Like it's just the way it's going to be.
So you mentioned earlier that you had this back and forth, obviously you controlling the AI, you giving it both visuals, both like art direction, then showing to the customer, like, so it seems to be there's like a loop there, a like prototyping ideation loop that could be accelerated.
Definitely.
You don't need 100 graphic designers to make it work. So do you think for you there has been examples of like competitive advantage, like for the customer, essentially, like the customer feeling the speed up because you embraced some of these tools?
I guess, I mean, it's interesting. There's still a lot of people using AI and not doing a good job.
Of course, yeah.
right? So
As with everything.
yeah, so it's like they'll release an AI visual of something, and then it's not indicative of what you actually get, like the Willy Wonka
Yeah. And
experience,
it's not well
right?
thought of. As you said, like it's like AI just like standalone, right? With
Yeah.
no human creativity, no art
Yes.
direction, no
Exactly.
inspiration from a human. What
Yeah.
is it at the end of the day?
Yeah. I agree. I think I guess it depends on it's interesting, isn't it? Because the level of output at the moment, even now, is extraordinary. So where does that take us? If we're talking about the future, do we then become desensitized to content because there's just too much of it? I mean, I'm already sensing that even on a very micro level. When I go to Netflix, I've got more films than I've ever had the opportunity to see ever. And I can't pick one because I'm overwhelmed with the stuff that it's just like, it's like, here's 10 balls, right? And you don't catch one of them. You throw one and you grab it and it's like, okay, great. And there's something in that. Like I used to go to Blockbuster, right? And I would go in and it would be an experience on a Friday night, and we'd go and we'd be like, and there's like 5 films to choose from.
Yeah.
And we picked 2. And we were super excited to watch them. Even if they were terrible, we would watch them from beginning to end. And then we'd critique it and be like, oh, that wasn't worth the money. Or actually, it started ramping up towards the end and the ending was good, but oh my God, what a slow beginning, right? We don't have those conversations anymore. Now it's like, oh, let's watch. Oh, yeah, no, I don't like that guy. Okay, fine. The character's not so great. Oh, okay. Dialogue's terrible. Oh, I can't get into it. Right. And suddenly you're like, blah, 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 blah. You never watch anything. You spend like an hour trying to find a film.
Oh my God, yes.
And you just like, bedtime, like, there's no time to watch anything anymore.
Just wasted my evening.
Just wasted my evening trying to find. So it's a struggle. So I guess what I'm saying is, will it get to that stage as well with Instagram? And because we're talking about AI films.
TikTok, yeah.
Eventually we'll have Netflix AI. And it'll just be AI films on Netflix, right? Maybe driven by big film directors, but they'll use pure AI to get there eventually. But then the other thing is, you're not getting any of those characters walking on the red carpet, which is also part of the mystique of the film world, right? Brad Pitt rocking up, or George Clooney. And it's like, George Clooney's here for the premiere. Like, who's doing that if they're just all AI, right? And then does that also kind of then make the imperfections of humanity more interesting and more appealing as well? Because everything's so damn polished and beautiful. Yeah, like there's a level of polish now that we see, which is everything's just perfect. It's perfect. So maybe there'll be a move more back towards kind of having more imperfect ways of doing things, more analog ways of doing things.
Interesting. So nowadays that everyone can be a creator, or the barriers to entry have lowered so much, what do you think separates true art from that consumer fiddling?
Intention.
Intention.
It's always intention for me. Like when I'm and also the personalization of it, right? Because it's an extension of your core. Art is simply an extension of your deepest, darkest self. And no one else really understands it in a way that you do. They have their own interpretation. It speaks to them. There's lots of art out there that makes people like, wow, this is incredible. But this is why I think AI will never take over art.
Yeah.
Not truly. Because for me, when I subscribe to art or buy art, I buy into the person behind it as well. When I stand in front of the Mona Lisa, not particularly a very attractive painting, and there's a whole level of dialogue around that as well, in and of itself. But why are people so mesmerized? And I think it's not because the Mona Lisa is somebody that everyone's like, wow, she's super cool. It's more like that's been painted by Da Vinci. This illustrious, almost mythical character. What was going through his head when he was painting her face? Did he forget about the eyebrows? Did he shave them off? Was she a man, woman? Was she his lover, mother? Like I don't like. And also, what was he going through? Was he questioning his sexuality at the time? Was he going through divorce? Did he steal something? Did he think that he would ever become somebody? There was a moment that captures in time within a world that we don't have access to, and a character we don't know, but we think we do. And when you stand in front of that particular painting, it's as close to Da Vinci as you'll ever get. And that's the same with every other painting. Any art that I'm doing right now, this is a part of me I'm bleeding out onto the canvas. In 1,000 years' time, maybe it's under the ground. Who the hell knows? Maybe I might be the next Van Gogh in like 1,000 years' time. He didn't know how famous he'd be now. He thought he was a complete loser. And now he's like, my God, like if he can look down through the, heaven or whatever, yeah, he's going to be like, wow, I did all right. Right. So that's my thing, is that art for me, most important thing is that you don't do art for anything other than yourself. Like you're not doing it for, even, I mean, I know commission's obviously important as well, but like it's an extension of your truest, most purest character. That's art for me. There's no level of justification for what you do. You do what you want to do. If people don't like it, it doesn't matter. I do lots of stuff that I don't even understand myself. It's like just a stream of consciousness, and I do these crazy like drawings and weird stuff comes out, and I'm like, whoa, what does that mean about me? So I think the dialogue is first between yourself and yourself, and then if people appreciate that, then that's amazing. Of course, like if you can live a great life as an artist and people love your work based on what you stand for, that's the dream. But art for me is all about intention and self-reflection.
Incredible. Final question, what are 2 or 3 bits of wisdom that you would share with young creatives for how they should, think about taking their steps, like if they want to become someone like you?
Have patience. That's really important. And try as much as you possibly can, as quickly as you can as well.
You said something earlier. You said reverse the effect of life on you. Yeah. Try to still think like a kid that takes all of these things about the next adventure.
Grow down is something that I'm hell-bent on driving through the experiences I create, because you'll never go wrong creating something that taps into our sense of play and wonder and magic of our inner child, right? Like we are set up for success the moment we're born into this world, but we forget about the attributes or the principles that have been applied by the creator, right? Like there's no kid that's born into this world who's depressed. That comes from environmental influence. Kids come into this world, they're 1, 2, 3 years old, and they're like, wow, this is cool. Like, everything's cool. They're like bouncing in their pram, or they're finding a rock and suddenly they're giving it a name. And
they're ambitious. They want to climb that tree.
Yeah, everything, right? Everything is new. And that's another thing, is that like when we get to like 13, 14 years old, you're told to grow up. And what does growing up look like? And then we're sold this whole like, kind of construct of adulthood that a lot of people don't subscribe to, and it sets people up for complete, psychological disaster. That's why so many people are depressed, because they're like, what is this sense of adulthood that I have? And it's not, I'm not saying that we all want to roll around like absolute lunatics and, just kind of like act silly all the time. But I think it's okay. We should be having experiences that give us license to be silly and give us license to go a little bit like, all these couples that have their little pet names for each other, right? Like, all right, like that. There's all these weird names, and it's like behind closed doors, a lot of people go back to kind of being that playful part of who they were when they were young. Yeah. And I think that's to be exploited a lot more in the way that we create experiences and give people license to go in and just have fun, and enjoy the moment without any level of judgment from anywhere else. Like when you're a kid, there's no judgment. You do what you want. You lay on the floor, You know, it's like you can do anything. It's amazing. It's so liberating. And sometimes I'm just like, I just want to do that as well. I'm at the airport. I just want to lay on the ground and like, you know, or do star jumps or like, you know, like, and just be weird.
Yeah.
And it's okay to be weird because one day we're all going to die anyway, and no one's going to remember you being weird
In an airport
or anywhere. But what they will remember is how you've made them feel. And if you're doing stuff that makes you feel good, you have that level of opportunity to pass that positive energy on to others.
Transmitting.
Exactly. So it's like, for me, through the experiences, I'm hell-bent on, like, you know, kind of really propelling people to grow down, to reconnect with their inner child and that magic of when they were young. And I think that, you know, experienced creators and creative directors have the opportunity to do that.
That's amazing. Give me 2 verses of your of the song you sang in the wedding ceremony 2 weeks ago, and then
okay,
I won't ask for anything else.
But there is, just to caveat this was for a friend. It is a little erotic comedic because I think it's also important to push the boundaries of all subject matter. It's called Down. It goes, everyone in the room, it's time to get ready for play. I said, there's a little naughty hiding deep inside you today. You see, you know I'm right. I see the twinkle in eyes. 'Cause tonight, whoa, might hold a welcome surprise. I said, if you're feeling haunted, take this as a warning. Tonight could be one hell of a ride. Take a look at one another. No, not your brother or sister, 'cause the shit isn't right when we're going down. Woo, oh, who's going down on who? And it continues.
That's amazing. You're incredible. Thanks so much for joining me today.
Thank you.